just welcome Teacher JC to Almost a Music podcast. Thank you, Teacher JC, for joining us this morning. So we built this podcast just to have like a safe place and a safe playground for us to have conversations on intersections between music, spirituality, consciousness, and all the things in between, and how it has like continues to inspire and complement the different aspects of our lives. So we're just glad to have, a wide array of conversations between different people. Most are the ones that are already within our circle. So I'm glad that you agreed to guest on the show. Welcome, Teacher JC. Chana, you want to say anything to introduce Teacher JC?
Yeah, just like to welcome JC to Clubhouse first of all, and welcome to the Almost the Music podcast. I have spoken to JC before in my podcast. Uh, I know this conversation will be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to this discussion today. So, JC, welcome to the Almost Music podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Meggy and Channa. It's an honor. And amidst the pandemic, it's always so nice to actually connect with people, especially the two of you whom I both met separately but in person. We make a lot of new friends now online, but it's also nice to actually know that you get to correspond with your friends who you met a long time ago prior to the pandemic.
Yeah, in person meeting in person. I now after whole this pandemic and everything, I'm really appreciating when I have the chance to meet somebody in person. And I was able to meet Meg a few weeks back. And JC, I'm looking forward to meeting you again in person, so that we can have more conversations in person. Uh,
Absolutely.
it's I think I just want to ask you, JC, now this whole what happened last 2 years, how is it been for you, and what were the challenges and what were the learnings from that last 2 years?
Well, honestly, for those who know me, I'm a very extroverted person, so I thrive and get more energy in actual human connection, in actual interaction, and primarily offline, meaning in person, face to face. And I realized during the pandemic that I thought I would have the hardest time. And yes, there were a lot of challenges, but I also was able to realize that I needed a lot of time to evaluate and analyze. And I actually appreciated times of silence. And even though I'm a meditation teacher, literally, there's no one to talk to in person, except, of course, for your family who will always be there. But just being at home and no one to interact with except for the people you do it with every day. It was challenging at the same time, much appreciated. It seems that we needed it at that time or still at this time. And another challenge now is that we're transitioning back and the fuel prices are rising and a lot of commodities are also rising in terms of price. So it's like, maybe there was a lot of benefit to not using fuel as much and just staying at home. So right now, with the kid going back to school in person, you're also hoping that maybe it could be a hybrid. Sometimes it should be online just so that we could at least save on gas. Little things like that. Practical.
Also, one thing that I recently, JC and me, we actually met. If JC remember, I think 6 7 years ago, we actually met in a mosh pit. That's the first
Correct.
time we met, and we've been to several concerts together, and we have I
Yes.
many times we
Wow.
have talked about live music, and I think what I love like about you, JC, is I think we both come from sort of a same. We've been influenced by the same kind of music, same kind of television, same kind of movies, right?
Correct.
And we are almost like from the same generation. Uh,
Yes.
and transitioning back. So the last 2 years there were no live shows, and recently I actually went to few local gigs, and I still see a bit of a hesitation, right? Because people really don't know how to react now. Whether you should shake hands, whether you should do a fist bump, whether you should hug somebody. It's like it's really awkward. I faced this couple of times. You whether you should keep your mask on or whether you should remove it, or it's like it's very awkward. Have you experienced that?
Mm. Yes, yes, I've attended several events, not music, but several gatherings, and it's like sometimes you're extending your hand, and then you realize, oh, you clench it into a fist for a fist bump, and then that person, when he saw you extend your hand from his fist bump, he was going to open to shake, and then now it's a different scenario, and then it's like, okay, let's just shake hands then, or fist bump. And you know how before when we used to see each other, it's like you shake hands and then there's a half hug with your other hand holding the back of the person. So now it's like you could still do that, but not too close. And it's still a bit awkward because you're not sure if that person is being mindful because they might have a senior or an unvaccinated child at home. So all of these things play. And even in, I attended an event where there was a band, and then instead of you being able to sing along, to chant, to remove your mask and just enjoy with fist pumping in the air, it's like you're just there standing and appreciating the music instead.
Yeah, I feel like it it took such a turn and such a different dynamic now, not just with events, but the way we interact with different people. So I don't know if this could resonate, but like that feeling of being more kind of aware of the subtleties of that person. It just makes you like listen or even observe to what they do with their hands or like their actions, the way that they speak. Like it truly made people listen more, pay attention more, and it's just so different to witness gatherings play out and like concerts play out, and how the meaning still stays the same. Like the community is still there, but it kind of had a different octave to it right now. But I'm glad that how things are moving forward. I feel like it's such a it's such a new space that we're moving into. Yet we're still us. We're just more different.
I agree. Chana, you're very lucky to have Meggy the way she speaks, and Meggy, you're very lucky to have Chana. Meggy, allow me to be so bold as to say you should be a yoga teacher. You have the vibe and the energy.
Oh, thanks.
I mean it. Yeah.
Thanks, JC. I actually took yoga teacher training last 2019, but never really thought about teaching. Like it was really for me to have a deeper practice and deeper learning with my practice, and really 2020 showed up to me in a way that made me realize how I was kind of dependent on having a teacher lead a class for me. That I kind of lost my relationship with a self practice. So that was a
No
very
worries
interesting
at all.
time.
Yeah. and and I know technically you're a yoga teacher certified, but when I say you should be a yoga teacher, meaning you should also start sharing because your voice is so calming, and the words that come out of your mouth actually resonate with me.
Wow, thanks, Teacher JC.
Yeah. Even Chana, Chana has a lot to share, and he comes from a different country, and yet able to acclimatize and just get along with everyone. It for me, that's yoga. It's harmony and union, and he does it so well. Can you imagine? Chana and I talk about everything from the most extreme metal bands to pop music and even hip hop. So it just goes to show how he sees the connection in everything, and that's why we get along so well, Chana and I. To the point that even though we don't talk about music anymore and just talk about anything, even food, we're always laughing and just jiving.
Yeah, I
I can
remember
see that.
JC, in one of the when we did our podcast, one of the questions I asked you was the connection between yoga and music, and I think you gave a very good answer that you see both of them. You don't see them as two different things. You see them as same thing, and it's basically both vibrations. So, would you share that again? Also tell a
Absolutely.
little bit about your music taste and stuff like that as well.
Absolutely. So, music. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Chana.
No, go ahead, JC. I'm fine.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Um, Yoga for me is, technically speaking, yoga means to yoke, which is a union or unity, a connection. And the connection is made up of everything here in the universe, to be philosophical or spiritual about it. And everything is made up of matter, which is solid, liquid, gas. And everything is broken down into smaller parts that vibrate. So, protons, neutrons, electrons, they're all vibrating. And that vibration creates a sound. That's why we call the om and the symbol the universal sound, because it's the vibration that's being created and resonating with everything and everyone, whether they know it or not. So it's empirical, it's science. And the sound is what creates life as well, because it's what's continually moving, evolving, expanding. It's such a beautiful concept that people think yoga is just doing a yoga pose, when in fact it's just a manifestation of our way of moving this beautiful creation we call the body, so that it becomes healthy to continue on living, to be able to share with others. So for me, that is yoga. Now, with regard to the vibration and the sound, because even before the yoga poses, there was the om, or the sound that's generated, which is from energy. And music is in itself energy. As a matter of fact, it's a universal language. Whether you speak this particular dialect or otherwise, you would appreciate, you would tap your toes, you would sway your hips, or you would just nod your head, or even in silence listen, because it's making a difference within. It's resonating. It's both calming you, or depending on the music, it's driving you to work, to move. So for me, technically speaking, music is yoga and yoga is music. So the musicians who create the music, for me, it's them practicing their yoga, whether they call it yoga or not, because that is their craft and that is their art, which they get to share. And those people who hear it, they actually get to be touched by it. And that in itself, their yoga is now touching them. And in a way, it makes them feel good, so that when they go back to their families after a concert or after just listening to an album, they're more relaxed, they're in a better mood. Or if you want to be driven, now I want to work, I want to go to the office, and I want to pump myself up to do the job I need to do. And another connection is that a lot of artists add a lot of, technically speaking, yoga topics in their music. Everything from the Beatles all the way to Madonna now, and even a lot of hardcore bands, they add a lot of yoga concepts to their music. So it's, for me, really hard to separate and delineate what yoga is and what music is, except to just pigeonhole them just for the sake of man having a concept of what it is. But for me, it's all the same.
Such a beautiful answer, JC. And I was so when I heard this last time, I was quite surprised when you say that. But now you're more of confirming that, and I also strongly believe that, because and I sort of experience this, because when a band starts playing in a concert, basically the band and the audience or the fans, it becomes there's certain balance that happens, right? So the atmosphere like changes, and then there's this balance. So or the band is able to make the audience get into a certain vibration. So it's very beautiful thing, right? So I think we have experienced that a lot. And uh, JC, you know that me and Meg actually met in Clubhouse, but we have actually been to the same concerts, but we have never met in a concert, but we have been to so many different concerts. It's so funny, but just on the clubhouse when we were talking, that's where we actually find out, oh, you have been to this concert and all that, and then
Yep.
that was actually the conversation that actually started this podcast.
Amazing.
Wow. Right?
Amazing.
And
Yes. To quote the Police album with Sting, synchronicity. That's right there. Yeah.
That's right.
absolutely. And
Yes.
just
Amazing.
thank you. And just really adding to what both of you have been just expressing, I feel like yoga is something that's felt. And just hearing Teacher JC speak about how it spills over into yourself, into your life, into your relationships, and how it amplifies like who you are and the expression of yourself. Like how amazing is that? Like how amazing is that? And coming from coming from just maybe some movement or from the expression of singing and how that translates to all the different aspects of your life. So yeah, it's wild. And I'm curious about this is like an off-topic question-ish, but I'm curious, Teacher JC, if you've seen any change in your voice the more that you taught classes, the more you were into this space more, the more that you've experienced, teaching some modalities. Like, how did that look like for you?
Yes, definitely. The paradigms always shift. There's always a change occurring. Basically, it's evolving. So, with regard to practicing and being experienced or experiencing modalities such as yoga movement, yoga meditation, or even just breathing, compared to when you're teaching it, it it drastically changes because now it becomes other centered. Even though for me, when you practice yoga, it's not self-centered because you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your family and others in the community. But technically speaking, when you're in class, whether online or live, you are more mindful to take care of others' welfare than just yourself. In fact, more for them. So as a teacher, I always say I'm here to serve. So if you're there to think that you're a teacher, you're there to lead. I think otherwise. I think you're there to serve them. It's about them. It's not about you. They come to your class also for them because they resonate with you. But your voice will change because now you're more careful and mindful that you are inclusive of them. And keeping in mind also, they come from different backgrounds. And what people don't realize sometimes is they go to yoga because one, they're either physically in need of the practice, they either need to move or they need to slow down. So that's the great thing about yoga. It's an equalizer. You can go there both to intensify or to relax, depending on how you approach the practice and how the teacher will acclimatize the students to the practice. Another thing is sometimes you don't realize they had an argument with their spouse or they had an intense meeting with their boss or their subordinate. So it's that yoga that they're looking for, and then you create an experience for them just so that they could come back to their waking world and be an even better person for themselves. And when they become better for themselves, they become better for others. So it sounds highfalutin, sometimes it sounds so touchy feely, but for me, it really is. So my voice will definitely change just for others. So sometimes, even if I'm having a hard time during the day, everything from emotional to financial, especially during the pandemic, and we're worried for a loved one or yourself because you're starting to feel a little bit different, and then you're in class and then everything has to shift like in a snap. Like, okay, there are others involved here, I have to be careful with them, I have to take care of them. And there's also a lot of trauma involved when it comes to a yoga class. Sometimes they go to class, there's some unrequited emotions happening, there's also some things in the subconscious that sometimes they're angry or they're aggressive, they can't explain why, but there are deep seated issues. So sometimes your meditation will just allow them to, if at least for just a minute or 5 minutes, let go of that and just come back to your breath. Then hey, we did what we're supposed to do, even for just that day. So my voice will have to be aligned with also the voices within themselves, and it constantly changes. Also, there are demographics involved. Like, for example, you're invited to teach a yoga class for the corporate world in a corporate company or even for government. So you have to also know where they're coming from. Perhaps they're so stressed, they're so battered. If you're teaching for doctors who are frontliners, they're very tired, and don't you don't have to exhaust them even more with yoga poses. Maybe simple yoga poses, maybe simple breathing will do. And then after that, maybe, just maybe, they would feel a little better, and that's okay. So it constantly changes. And then online, people think that, oh, it's so easy. You're just online. There's no connection. It's up to you how you make the connection online. And Maggie, you were there, China, you attend my classes. You know how it is. And also, you don't know them personally sometimes, especially here via Zoom or Clubhouse. So you also have to consider the fact that there are words that you might say that might be triggering, or there are words that you say that they will not comprehend. So it's best to do your best to explain how you're doing the class in a way that everyone will be open to it. You can't please everyone, but at least you try.
Absolutely, and it's just so fascinating how the change in an environment, or like the people that are attending your class, kind of changes the context and the way you approach the language. But bottom line, like what you said, just having that awareness that each of us like are going into this room, going into this class, like not knowing each other too much and each other's headspace, but we're there to just kind of lay a ground on them to just sit with the thoughts, sit with themselves. It could be something difficult, could be something easy for each one, but I know it's uniquely different for each for everybody attending class. So yeah, it's a pretty wild position to be in, right?
I think
Yes.
JC, what I love about your class is your class is what I feel is very compassionate towards the people who join your class, and that's what actually brings me back, because I started as you gave me some free classes. That's where I actually started joining your yoga class, right? Uh, it was for me. It's certain poses. It can be very hard, but because the way that you guide the students is very compassionate, after I personally experienced this, that after after several sessions, I was able to achieve some of the poses that I thought I could never do. So I really appreciate the way you teach, JC.
No, thank you, so inspiring. I'm also coming from me being in my mid 40s and having to be careful with how I also move my body, and especially we don't heal as fast as we used to, and our certain movements may be even detrimental to us. So I try to come from the perspective wherein we're here to heal, so we just watch out for each other. And Chana, even though yeah, this is so ironic for you to say that you might think you might not be able to do moves that you never could. I always looked up to you, me and my wife, who's also a yoga teacher, Yuewa. Um, when we hear that you walk for like so and so kilometers and then you bike for 100 kilometers, I couldn't even comprehend that because I've never done those. And it's not that I don't want; it's just that the opportunity wasn't present because I've been taking care of so much yoga that for me, your biking is your yoga. And for you to be able to do that, it just goes to show how beautiful humanity is, that there are things that you don't think that you can do, and yet that person who does those things that you think you can't do also thinks that same of you, that I can't imagine biking that long, that I might just faint, or oh, I might get heat stroke, or how does Chana do that? Yeah. That's how I see you. Promise.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Thanks, JC. Yeah.
It's
Mm.
true. It's true. Did you notice I always like your medals and your certificates? Because it's like, oh, it just so happens that after yoga, I am tired. So I wish, if there's no class, maybe I'll follow Chana's suit and maybe just do a virtual run and at least get that little nice badge of completion. It's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, uh, I want to ask you something related to the movement, actually. So one more thing that you're passionate about, and I think also your brother, right? The martial arts. So,
Yes.
what form of martial arts do you practice, JC?
Well, I dabbled in several martial arts growing up. I started as a kid with Taekwondo, which was what was prevalent in the 80s. So I practiced a lot. That I was a part of the varsity team of my grade school, in Colegio San Agustin, Makati. By the time I was in high school, I stopped practicing martial arts because I discovered Guns N' Roses, Slayer, and Iron Maiden. So it was all just music, music, music. And then going to college, I practiced martial arts once more for my fitness. And this was all coinciding with my meditation practice because my mother was already a deep meditator. So it was always available at home. But the martial arts, there's an extreme form of martial art in the Philippines called Sarian. It's more of an underground martial art. It's called Sariling Paraan, or Your Own Way. It was more of how do I say, reality based combatives type of martial art. You can say it's Filipino street fighting, but of course you do it with temperance. So yeah, I practiced that, and then later on, I focused because I love the Filipino martial art that I practice. I focused on what's known worldwide now as Arnis, Kali, Eskrima. So it's the weapon arts of the Filipinos, and yeah, I personally, would you believe, I do it for myself. I do it because I love the aggressive release. I love the aggression. It balances my yoga and vice versa. But you notice I don't have classes. It's just for me. I love it. Oh, allow me to say also, Chana, no? Just while we're here, allow me to explain what I also share in workshops with either yoga or martial arts. That a lot of the movements that we do in yoga became the derivative for what is considered the mother of martial arts in basically the region where your homeland is from. So specifically in Kerala, India, there's this martial art called Kalaripayattu, and it was derived also from yoga movement and philosophy and poses. Kalaripayattu was brought to China, according to legend, by the first sage and avatar of China, Bodhidharma, and Kalaripayattu is what became Kung Fu. Kung Fu spread and then it moved to Okinawa, it became karate, and then it moved to other regions. It became the different martial arts that we have in the world today. So it's rooted in Kalaripayattu, rooted in yoga. So for me, again, just like music, it's all the same.
It's
Wow.
just different subgenres, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. Chana, I know you'd understand in Meggy because you love music. So hey, you have metal, but you have thrash, you have that, you have grindcore, you have black. It's all the same. Music is music is music. And you just put genres just so that you have a semblance of understanding the art. But
Mm.
for us, it's the same. And even if you go listen to a boy band, you listen to an R&B band, it's still vibration and energy. And if it makes you feel good, great. If it doesn't, then maybe it just so happens that for that day and that time, and maybe in this lifetime, it's a different energy. But nonetheless, it's all the same.
Absolutely. And it's just nice to hear you, Teacher JC, just speak about the practice that you really do for yourself and that you enjoy doing. And it's just wow for it to be connected in yoga in that way. Like, I never realized it for it to be like that.
Thank you, Meggy.
Yeah.
Thank you for appreciating that. It's nice to hear a yoga teacher say that also, because not many people know these things, and it just so happens I'm a yoga nerd and a music nerd. So,
Yep.
hey, there it goes.
Yeah, and we were speaking about music and connection just a while back, and something that really have stood out for me before whenever you would take whenever I would take your classes, teacher JC and Evolve, was whenever you would share your journey of leaving corporate and pursuing this teaching being a yoga teacher full time. And when you share that to us, like it really landed on me. I'm not sure where was I at that stage. Like I think I was still about to graduate college, I think, or mid college, and
Yes,
it
yes.
was really something that class or the series of classes that I would attend, you would always speak about that. And in my mind, I would just think about like, wow, he is so brave. And I wonder like where he gets that brevity, like what maybe called him to do that. And it's just so nice for someone to share that type of connection to maybe bridge conversations between us. So it's just so nice to hear that. Would you maybe want to speak about that journey?
Sure, sure. Chana, just allow me to say, having met Meggy a long time ago. Actually, Meggy, I met Chana a long time before that when I was still in corporate, because we met in the mosh pit when I was still in corporate. And with Meggy, I was already sharing yoga full time. And Chana, allow me to share when I spoke to Meggy. That's why until now we correspond and we keep in touch. Is because I've always found her mature. Although you look very young, a lot of people who come to yoga all look young. So I didn't know you were in college. I just thought you were a very mature individual. So hey, it just so happens you look young. I'm impressed. I now I know. So great. And with regard to me leaving corporate, you can see it's there's the courage involved as with any change, but it's also because my mother passed away and she shared her yoga with me. And when she passed away in 2016, I said, you know what? Life is so finite, at least the mortal life here on this earth for this lifetime. I said, what would I really want to do? Both of my parents have passed away, and my mother just passed away. I cremated her. I asked myself, do I want to live the life that I'm living now, investing a lot of time at work, or do I just put food on the table, as little as it may, by doing something that I truly, truly resonate with? And that was yoga. I it may sound hurtful or controversial, but I was looking also at the lives of my corporate superiors, and I asked myself, if I'm in my late 40s, 50s, all the way to retirement age, would I want what they have? They have the expensive cars and the big houses, but they also have unhealthy bodies brought about by the lifestyle of working overtime and prioritizing over family. I'm looking at the connections they have. I'm not saying it's bad, because there are a lot of corporate captains of industry who do well with balance, but there's always a give and take. And I was asking myself, if is it worth it, at least for me, to not have the practice that I want, and then be at the beck and call of a corporation that's willing to replace me the moment I leave. And I had to consider the money. It was very hard. Yes, I don't earn as much, but I get to do what I want to share, and others benefit from that as well. So, in terms of courage, I would say, Meggy, you're right. That is the word I used. It took a lot from me to do that. But I said I just had to, because the caveat was my mom passing away. I said, I'll honor her legacy. And there. So, did you notice? When I was speaking at the start of this conversation, it was straight. But when you asked me these questions, I had to find the words inside because it was difficult.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow, thank you. Thank you, Teacher JC, for sharing that.
And also, it's not a judgment or an insult on my superiors in corporate. It just so happens that I ask myself, when I look at them, they look so stressed all the time, they look so tired, and so was I. And I ask myself, will I be doing this for 10, 20 more years when both of my parents didn't even reach senior year? They not My dad passed away at 50, my mom at 59. If life is that short for me, what would I be doing now? And I said yoga. Okay, there we go.
JC, I actually wanted to do something similar. I actually kind of did it in 2018, and I think I, I spoken this with you earlier as well. But what I found out is because the technology and stuff like that is, I'm passionate about those things. I couldn't stay away from that. So I after a few months, I actually went back to corporate because I felt that that is where I belong, and rather than trying to leave corporate, what I did is try to find the balance, and I think I managed to find that balance, so that we don't work, uh, we don't live for work, rather we work just so that we can live. So finding that balance, that's sort of my experience on that, JC.
I totally agree. I remember our conversation about that. And I'm glad that you went back because honestly, Chana, your successes in your companies, it speaks volumes. I see your posts and it's very nice. As a matter of fact, it's inspiring your own child with regard to technology. He's being able to code at such a young age. I see the posts and he understand the concepts that a lot of adults even don't understand about information technology. So you being there, making a difference in your company, which makes a difference for the world, is also part of your yoga. Plus the fact that you still get to walk, bike sometimes, definitely attend concerts either streaming or live. And Chana, that's exactly what you said. That's called balance.
Teacher JC, would you
Yes.
like to speak about your style of yoga and how you have founded Conscious Spirit Yoga and Medical Yoga?
Oh, thank you so much, Teacher Meggy. Yes, people may not realize, they may be surprised, especially your normal followers, when they call you Teacher Meggy, because yes, you are a yoga teacher. So, Teacher Meggy, thank you so much for that. I I I've practiced many styles of yoga. I was inculcated in yoga because my mother, at such a young age, was already into yoga before I was born in the 70s. And back then, there were no yoga studios that we know of the way we do now. And back then, when you say yoga, for them, it was more of a lifestyle and was meditation and breathing. So growing up here, I was born in the late 70s, so I grew up primarily in the 80s. I'm an 80s kid and a 90s teenager. I i always saw her sitting in a lotus pose or just seated in the middle on the floor instead of on a chair, and just closing her eyes and breathing. And then as a child, I would just sit next to her because she was my mother. So that's how I was introduced to meditation, until such time that she was slowly explaining to me what she was doing. And later on, growing up, I love my martial arts. One of my friends invited me to do a yoga class, and then I said, "Yeah, I do that all the time at home with my mother." And then he said, "Try it. Yeah, it's called so and so style of yoga." So I practiced, and like, whoa, I've never tried this before. It's intense. It's hard. What's happening? I thought I do yoga. This is different. So I explained to my mother, I attended this yoga class. Okay, it's a Ashtanga Vinyasa yoga class. And my mother said, "Oh yes, that's part of it because you have to take care of the body and all. It's just that you already do your martial arts, so at least you get to take care of your body and at least you meditate." So that's how my mother explained it to me. Very practical, not highfalutin, but the concept was there. And so I kept on trying the different styles of yoga. It turns out there were many, a myriad of styles, physicality being involved in it. So I tried them all and I appreciated it. But prior to that, my mother already had me certified in meditation courses. So it's just that I never sought to teach it because I thought it was a personal practice. And then when I did formal physical teacher trainings for yoga, so you have yin, vinyasa, ashtanga, hatha, some friends started messaging me and said na, hey, can I practice yoga with you? Or I said, oh, sure, sure. Like that. Simple as that. Or the first formal class that I taught is a friend of mine from college calling me because she was part of the HR department of her company, invited me, and then to lead a class. So that's how it started. So my love for the different styles of yoga is still rooted in the spirituality. And sometimes I attend the yoga class and it's primarily like a gym workout, and it's okay. That's their style. Hashtag respect. I wanted the very spiritual foundation to be present in every yoga. That's why in every yoga class, there should be a connection, a relationship, and there's also inclusivity, regardless of where you're coming from, because your spirituality will be based on that. So I found it conscious spirit yoga. I call it conscious with a K because K is such a beautiful sacred letter both for Filipinos and Indians, and where it's rooted in India and even in general. So having that, I call my yoga conscious spirit, whether it's yin, the soft one, or yang, the more intense hatha based or moving vinyasa, only because every yoga pose should have that remembrance that you're there taking care of this beautiful body for what's inside, which is the soul. So I called it Conscious Spirit Yoga. And then I co founded Medicale Yoga Institute because in the modern times, we can't just speak about spirituality without the science behind it. And my co director, teacher VL Oligario, also India trained, is a physical therapist, osteopath, and dry needler, and several other modalities. So we mix both the science and the esoteric. So we come up with Medicale Yoga Institute. So like yesterday, I just finished my first level 2 teacher training for others where I certified the first level 2 conscious yin teachers. It's conscious because, again, every yoga pose you do is not just because of your body, but it's because of both your mind and your spirit primarily. The body is just there to take care of this beautiful energy you have, the soul. So that's why we founded Medicale Yoga Institute so that we can do teacher trainings that are not available here in the Philippines for others to benefit. And when I say that are not available, we brought in um, other styles such as kids yoga with special needs or kids with special needs yoga. We have the pre and postnatal yoga, not just prenatal but postnatal because it's very crucial. We have restorative yoga, which is different from yin. We also have enhanced hatha, which is basically a yoga therapy based platform. We make sure that our teachings, we have to have something that is not available just so that others can benefit and avail of it. So there.
Uh, JC, do you see that this is something that I observe now that a lot of people are understanding or embracing yoga beyond that? Though yoga has some benefits, physical benefits like flexibility and maybe developing your strength and stuff like that, but the spiritual aspect, uh, I think a lot of people are now embracing yoga more in a sense of spiritual aspect, right? Not just the physical. They don't just treat it as exercise. What do you think about that?
Okay. For me, before, yoga was always sort of connected to to what was coming from India. If you're westernized and then you hear yoga, automatically you connect it to a religion when in fact it just so happens that it was developed there in a race or people that already have a certain religion. So for me, it's not religion, but it's more of a technology for the soul. And with regard to your statement that people are discovering yoga now beyond the physical, what happened is when it came to the West, the westernized focused more on what they thought was cool or sexy, which were the amazing yoga poses. So it became sort of like a fitness regimen for a lot. But now, because of globalization and people and the internet being able to share more information, a lot of people, just like what Chana was saying exactly, people are discovering that yoga is not just about doing a tree pose or even an inversion or headstand. It's not just that, it's actually breathing, and it's rooted more in the spiritual aspect of the grand scheme of things. So when Chana says that people are discovering, I absolutely agree that they see the spirituality because people can now share their insights more online, be it social media, blogs, or actual articles. Before you have to buy, Chana, remember magazines? And back then we had a lot of magazines on music. So there were magazines on yoga, but it wasn't always accessible for everyone. You only had what was shown on television before there was cable, before there was Netflix, and now it's available everywhere. And then you have podcasts like this, you have podcasts like Chana Chana Chana. People get to discover more, whether on YouTube or Spotify or what have you there.
Absolutely, and it has become like such a wide sea of different practices that you can explore, and even if you're just curious about it, you can totally try some for free. And I'm just glad to see like a landscape of more people being more curious and open about these different practices. And I feel like it has, or it's starting to show, or maybe based on just the way I see it, they have tapped two different practices that could be self-soothing, or that the way that they would use different, let's say, sound healing baths to just relax themselves, or also find a different way or avenue to find that peace within themselves. So it's just nice to witness.
Yes, absolutely. I see it like this. It's a restaurant with a menu, a myriad of choices for you. There's something for everyone, and yet it's still the same restaurant. You can go there and you can enjoy, regardless of what you order that you feel you would like to try.
Yes, yes. All right, so I think we're down to our last 8 minutes. What? Maybe we
Wow.
can talk about, yeah, what's something that you're excited about, teacher JC, and maybe plugging any classes, any other teacher trainings. But first of all, congrats with the round two of Yin teachers that you have certified for level two. Congratulations! I
Yes.
think that was just this morning, was it?
Actually, it started last Monday until yesterday. So the whole Holy Week, 50 hours conscious yin yoga, and our first graduates of the Yoga Nidra teacher training, yogic sleep.
Nice. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So, wow, I didn't realize the time, Meg, because all three of us, we all have the same passions and the same appreciations for things such as music and movement. Um, Meggy, can I just say, not to patronize you, but you have the gift of gab. You speak really well, and you're able to explain things both philosophically and practically. It's I said you're a yoga teacher. Um, I would like to share to everyone that for those of you who want to try yoga, I have Conscious Spirit Yoga. It's my platform to share yoga via one-on-one classes or corporate or groups. It's online or in person. It's Conscious Spirit Yoga with the letter K. And then we have Medicale Yoga Institute with my co-director, teacher Viel Oligario, wherein we do teacher trainings. So this year, we're going to have again Reiki 1, Reiki 2. We're going to have Conscious Yin Yoga Level 1 once more. And we're still considering kids yoga pre and postnatal again, depending on the need. So as well as yoga therapy. So it's Medicale Yoga or Medicale Yoga Institute. So it's also on Instagram and Facebook, as well as the sound healing conducted here in my home by my wife, teacher Yuewa, with Healing Haven or Healing Haven PH. It's gong bats, tarot readings, oracle card readings, sound healings through crystal quartz bowls and Tibetan singing bowls as well. So what we do is we try to make a difference for others by various modalities. And what I'm excited about, Meggy, would you believe, is always music. I seem to have a quota for me, whether YouTube or online, that I need to, at the very least, listen to two new albums or two albums I haven't heard in a long time. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, today I will play I will play a New Order album which I love, for example. And then maybe later I will listen to the most recent release of Lamb of God. So I need to listen to two albums in a day. It's not a pressure on myself, but it's just because I love music so much that okay, tomorrow I'm already excited. It's like I have it lined up already. Okay, tomorrow what do I listen? Oh, okay, I'll listen to the Crow soundtrack, and because the Cure was there, I might as well listen to the most recent Cure album, something like that. There, I could even go to hip hop. Okay, hey, I miss Nas. I'll listen to Nas's first album there, and then because I was listening to Nas, I'll listen to Dr. Dre later. So I line things up in a way.
Oh, so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that
Mhm.
fascination. It's so different. Like just to hear that, to hear people say that, especially within that space of being active in the spirituality space and these different modalities. Like rarely do I find people that are just as fascinated with this other aspect of themselves or this expression of themselves that when it comes to music. So it's wild. And I'm just glad that we're gonna be putting out this episode soon. Thanks again,
Likewise,
JC,
I
for
can't wait to share it. Yeah. Oh, Maggie, just allow me to share. And I've told this to Chana before. This is very crucial for me because sometimes people can't reconcile. You're a yoga teacher and you listen to hardcore punk and extreme metal. For me, like I said, that's all yoga. It's all the same. And then, but isn't that a negative and detrimental? It really depends on how you perceive it. Because the way I see it, it's more of like, for example, Slayer have very aggressive, intense lyrics. But for me, they are simply sort of like CNN. They're just a megaphone for one aspect of society or one aspect of what's happening with the world with regard to war, with regard to crime, with regard to mental health. So you can see there it become the albums or the music become a microcosm of how society is, that there are different sides to it, and it's just listening to it, and then realizing that I want to be the person that will make the world better as opposed to how it is viewed. So there, and the music reminds me of that as well. Plus, it's a good beat.
mm-hmm.
Totally
Thank
agree,
you.
JC. Totally agree. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think we should actually appreciate the artists that actually put out this music that give us some perspective of the world, right? The things that
Yes.
we would not normally focused on. So
Yes.
So I do really appreciate, and I appreciate as you, I do appreciate all kinds of music like hip hop and pop and everything. And I really love also listening to the whole albums. As you, JC, I think you know that I always try to post music instead of
Yes.
negativity in social media. So try to inspire people to listen, try to listen to more music. Just want to say, JC, thank you for joining this podcast. Sorry, it took some time for us to organize this episode recording, but really appreciate that you joining. And we would like to do talk to you again in the future. And all the best with your classes, all your teacher training programs. And I'm looking forward to returning back to your class soon. So thanks for joining, JC, today.
Chana, Meggy, I can't wait to see you again in person and give ourselves hugs because we deserve it. Yeah, you're both special to me. Thank you.
Oh, I'm smiling so big. Thanks, Teacher JC. Have a good day. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll post all the links on our notes for this episode for you guys to check out Teacher JC's classes, works, and certifications, sessions, and all the things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.